Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. This is episode number 272, and I'm going to be discussing tonight and celebrating Space 1999's 50th anniversary celebration with the premiere date of Breakaway, which literally took place on this day and this date, Sunday, September 21st, of 1975 on WPIX Channel 11. So for the folks out there that are in the New York City area or grew up in the New York area and remember 50 years ago with all the advertisements that were taking place, the 50th anniversary of Space 1999 taking place, tonight was it. So this is when everything really just kind of hit the spotlight and it launched, which was incredible. So anyway, I really wanted to, this was kind of a last minute idea, but I thought it would be really cool especially for the folks that grew up in the New York area or watched in the New York area. And when I say grew up, I was 9 years old when Space 1999 premiered. And I remember it leading up to this date 50 years ago. So I thought, you know what? The moon is in alignment with that. And what better way than to celebrate with having folks join us, whether it be virtually, and maybe I'll have some folks come on too. So I thought it'd be really, really cool to discuss. So anyway, I just want to say hi to everybody. Welcome everybody. And the show's been kind of on a hiatus with everything. There's been so much stuff going on. So it's great to be back. I want to welcome our viewers that are out there. I see Dennis Chevalier is joining us from Canada. Welcome, Dennis. Great to see you out there. And I see Warren's out there. Thanks for joining, Warren. Warren's also joining us from Canada. Great to see you out there. And also I see Randy Lee is joining us from Wisconsin, and he's out there as well too. So happy you're enjoying the pictures from the convention too. Yeah, thanks for posting that too, Randy. And Martin is joining us from New York. Welcome, Martin. And I see Missy's joining us from Texas. Hello, Missy. Great to see you out there. And I see Shari's out there. She's actually walking right now. Hi, hon. Good to see you out there. And Diana is also joining us, joining us from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Bill Graff is joining us. Bill, welcome. Great to see you there too. He says, I remember the evening of the premiere very well. A cool fall evening. I ran home to see it. Awesome. And Jerry is also out there. Welcome, Jerry. So we have a lot of people out there, which is really cool. And yeah, I'll be sharing some slides. I wish I could share some video. I may try to do something a little later, but we'll see how that goes. I'm a little hesitant about it. And Bill's saying that amazing theme song really made an impact. Yes, it sure did, Bill, and I'm very excited about talking about that. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to actually bring on a guest, and this guest is integral when it comes to Space 1999, especially dating back to the 1970s, and we have a lot to thank him for. And I remember back in the day, of the folks out there that remember Starlog magazine, I always try to give Starlog a nod, and he was instrumental with providing us a lot of cool information through Starlog, and with the information about Space 1999, and of course Jerry Anderson's Space Report. So I want to welcome on Mr. David Erg. Hey, David.
Hi, Roy. Hi, guys. Sorry I missed you all at the convention. Unfortunately, schedules conflicted with that, so I couldn't make it out to LA.
No, again, as I said, David, you were definitely missed, but very happy to have you here tonight, and just to reflect back. And this is you're an integral part of Space 1999 for the obvious reasons that I just mentioned, but also you were in the New York City area, and it was part of the reason I really wanted to do tonight's show, because Space 1999 premiered on this date right now at this very time 50 years ago, which is incredible.
Yeah, I remember. I said to you that I wasn't sure if I had seen it at WPIX, but now that you mentioned Sunday night, I'm pretty sure it was. I had just started college up at State University in Cortland, which is just near Syracuse. And we did get the New York stations. And I remember going down to the Student Union and watching it on Sunday night when it premiered. So that was pretty exciting. And some people trickling in going, "What's that?"
Now, David, I have such strong recollections of right the weeks before on Channel 11, there was like a constant barrage of ads that were
Oh
coming
yeah,
through, and they
yeah.
were announcing about this new series that was going to be premiering, and they kept repeating it over and over again. And one of the scenes, obviously, that really resonates is the final scene with Alan and the Eagle, and as the moon is actually starting to go out of the Earth's orbit, and
Right.
they kept showing that, and to this day, I can see myself watching that scene, and at my parents, and again, I was like 9 years old, but
Yeah.
it's such a strong memory.
Well, I mean, for me, I knew about the show going back to the beginning of production because I used to read Variety on a regular basis. Hi, Dennis. And Variety had that beautiful 2-page ad with the Keith Wilson production painting of the astronauts over moon base, and it said, "Production begins today on the most expensive and exciting space science fiction series." So, being an Anderson fan since I was, I don't know, way back to Supercar, I always looked forward to anything by them. So we had seen UFO, and I said, "This has got to be spectacular." But it took almost 2 years for us to actually see it. So I had been waiting since that initial ad to see the show. And we
Wow.
actually got the novels in the school bookstore. I actually had the Breakaway novel, I think, before the show premiered.
It's interesting that you were saying that about in the bookstore, because our I was in elementary school. I'm really, it's hard to believe, 50 years ago.
You're a
But
child compared to me.
I know, I don't feel like it's around, but it's crazy. But we had, for the folks out there, who remembers the school bookmobiles that used to come?
Oh God, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
The bookmobile, there were 3 books that I was able to get. I got The Making of Star Trek, which I still have today. That book is in shambles, but I still have it. It's actually split in half.
The original cover?
What's it? It's no. I wish it was. It's the silver cover.
Yeah, because the original cover with the Enterprise in the sky from from that episode, and then them on the bottom. I had that originally.
Wow, very, very nice. Yeah, so that one I didn't have, but I did have the next edition.
Right.
Then also I had Breakaway, the novelization,
Mhm.
and then I also had Moon Odyssey, and those were the 2 that I got, and I was just like in such awe that
and they were so cool. They came with the little photo sections and everything.
Exactly,
because that really wet your whistle for what you're going to see on the show.
It was really, really cool. But I just saw some other comments come through. I want to say Dennis Chevalier was saying hi.
Okay. Hi, Dennis.
Also, Warren.
Hey, Warren.
And you were talking about the Variety. Warren has the collection from the Martin Landau archives.
Right.
The Variety ads and everything that you were referencing, which are
I don't know if he has that first one. I don't remember seeing that, because I remember when Robert Wood and I were doing To Everything That Might Have Been, I did a reconstruction of the ad in case they wanted to run it in the book, which unfortunately they didn't, because they were worried about whether or not Variety would want us to pay them. But I remember having to rebuild the whole thing from the ground up, because I got some photo of the ad on someone was selling it on eBay, so I was able to reconstruct all the text and everything. But he had all the other ones because they were in Variety and Hollywood Reporter constantly in the first series, producing promoting the show as it was being sold, because it sold to so many stations. The classic story was there were a lot of affiliated stations out in the Midwest that were preempting network shows to run it in prime time.
And it's such a shame that, and I'm reading the backstories and everything, it's such a shame that, I guess wasn't it CBS that was going to originally pick it up? No, or was it ABC? I'm sorry.
No, it was CBS owned and operated stations, because they had bought UFO. So all the stations, New York, Chicago, LA, that CBS actually owned and controlled, ran UFO on Saturday nights at 7. And then it was syndicated to other stations from that. So initially, they were hoping CBS was going to either network it in prime time or again buy it for the owned and operated stations, which meant more money. But that never happened. It just, for some reason, 'cause back then science fiction was something that most network executives never understood, because the shows either failed off the bat or they were just way too expensive.
Well, it seemed, I guess they had a deal that they were gonna come on. Martin Landau was interviewed. I saw an interview with him recently. It was probably from maybe about 15 or 20 years ago, and he was even just saying that he had part ownership of the show.
Yeah.
And he was even saying that I guess the networks may have gone with it, but they were going to go for only maybe 13 episodes and then see how it was playing out and cancel it or give the green light to finish the regular 24.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they had all 24 of the episodes made, so it was like that wasn't really going to work because
that was how ITC worked. They all shot the shows before they even had a sales deal, and then they would hope that the shows got picked up most of the time by network. I think, even The Saint, I think originally started out as syndicated before NBC picked it up. I think when it went to color, it started showing on NBC. I could be wrong about that, but I know in most cases, that's how Lou Grade would sell the shows. He'd package them and then offer them for sale. And some shows, like The Champions and The Prisoner, were picked up as summer replacement shows because the networks would cancel shows that weren't really performing well and not pay all the rerun fees, so they put something else in its place. So you would see those shows on in the summer.
Right.
And if it did well in the summer, they'd bring it back the next summer to run the rest of the episodes.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that they didn't want to take the chance with. I see a comment from Martin coming in. He said, I bought my first novel from W.H. Smith's in England way before the series started. Now, Martin was living in England. It's from England. Randy's saying the only way to get great sci-fi books was from the bookmobile.
Yeah.
Missy commented and said, I got to see it on WJAC TV, Channel 6 out of Johnstown on NBC station, Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Try and be a girl into sci-fi at the time. Talk about being the odd one out.
That's true. I mean, the funny thing was, as we watched the show, depending on where we watched it, we watched, different episodes because they'd be edited for time in different markets. And Channel 11 in New York, which, God bless them, ran 35 mil prints. So we had the best looking shows on the old, 480 TVs. They cut the most time because I think they cut them down to about 45 minutes. So, when you finally saw other cuts of the show, you'd go, wow, I never saw that scene before.
Well,
I remember the scene where Martin Landau's sitting in his chair and he's lit and they're running through things that people said earlier in the show. And you hear Helena say, I can't guarantee they'll be safe out there in deep space, and it's like, well, she never said that. When did she ever say that? Because the scene was cut.
Exactly. And you know what, for me, what happened was we lived in Wallington, New Jersey, in Bergen County. And we moved in 1976 out to this area, which is in the Lopakong area, Phillipsburg, New Jersey,
right?
Going like 5 miles out towards New Jersey, Pennsylvania border.
Right.
What happened was when we moved out here, Channel 17 out of Philadelphia was running Space 1999 also, and they were a week behind. So when I would catch it on 17, there would be all this quote unquote extra footage that was in the episode that wasn't in Channel 11's version. And
but other stuff was cut out.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, to be fair, 11 cut out scenes that didn't really impact the story as much.
Their editing was very good. You didn't miss the stuff that was cut out. You never sat there and said, did I miss something? Really, because the story still flowed.
Exactly.
There were other stations that chopped the shows to hell, and I could talk about other episodes that just didn't make any sense.
But it was painful that they did that, and then when you actually saw those extra scenes, it's like, whoa! And then it was like bonus. Shari commented. She said, "Love the bookmobile, but as a kid, missed 1999. I guess I was too busy idolizing the Bionic Woman. Lots of laughs. Did not know about 1999 until I met Roy. Lots of laughs."
My wife says the same thing. So,
Missy's commenting, or actually Martin comments that ATV Midlands was my station in England. That showed it on, I think, Sunday night. And
Well, he was lucky he had ATV because it got handled really badly in England, which was a shock.
Yeah, I know. You would think that since it was filmed there, that they would have actually showcased it
Because
a lot more.
because just like American programmers thought, oh, it's science fiction, it's British. The British then, oh, it's an American show. We're going to give priority to British shows.
Right.
Just because the Landows were in it, they thought it was an American-made show. Just like they all thought that Thunderbirds was made in the United States.
Yeah. Missy said, I got my Making of Space 1999 from G.C. Murphy at the Logan Valley Mall.
Yeah.
Knew nothing about the novelizations or sci-fi magazines at the time, and yet there was that book on the spinning book rack.
Yeah, you had to look for stuff. It just was, you didn't know what it was coming out.
And Dennis said, I used to sit with my Mattel Eagle and play with it as I watched the episodes back into the 1970s.
Sure, who didn't?
Daryl.
A lot of people still do.
Daryl Simmons is out there joining us from the UK. Welcome, Daryl.
Hey, Daryl.
Yeah. Now, I want to bring on another guest that's out there, and he also grew up in the New Jersey, New York area, so it's only appropriate. I wanted to reach out to him to talk about watching Space 1999 back in the day, and that is Mr. John Kenneth Muir.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Hello. Hi, Roy. Hi, David.
How are you?
Good. It's good.
I can't do that. I just can't do that.
It is good to see you both. I've got Moonbase Alpha back there. If you
I see that. Yeah.
I see that. Very cool.
Well, as I said to Roy, I have my
Space
Theater set.
That's you got. Is that the one that there's been all the tariffs on that people have been just been?
I know. Isn't that horrible? I mean, I just put it in order on the new version of the Making 1999, and I think the book is like $43, and it's costing me $78.
Oh, yeah.
But no. I figured, I want to support it because I really like the writer. And he's been very, very generous with his praise of the stuff that I've done. He's mentioned me, which I always appreciate.
Absolutely, and I just want to say it's so nice to be here with you, Roy and David. I was listening to you, David, while I was backstage, telling these behind-the-scenes stories, which are so fascinating, and Roy, listening to your experience, having the two different versions of the same story on a week basis. Did you think you were going crazy as a kid? It's like, this was not in the episode last week.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, if you want to talk about crazy local editing, the story I always tell is about the second season episode Beta Cloud, that I watched it once when I was visiting a friend in Boston. And there's a scene where Tony and Maya are trapped in this room filled with chlorine gas.
Oh, yeah.
And they go to commercial. And they come back and they're running down the corridor. How did they get out of the room? Now, I had seen the episode before, but I'm thinking, how many people never saw it or are watching this episode going, well, that's terrible writing.
Right. You wonder if some of the crazy things that people wrote about the show, you're like, this is not true. These criticisms are not true. Like, were they watching? And then you think, maybe they were watching. They were watching some cut up
something else.
Version, right?
Yeah, right. It's no different than when you read the script and you see something that was cut out of the final edit. And you go, well, that perfectly makes sense now. Why did they cut that out? Because they've been watching this a million times and it never occurs to them. I'm cutting out something that's going to explain something.
Right. And then sometimes I know the writers wish they would cut out things. I remember.
Yes.
I love the episode Another Time, Another Place. I just think it's so eerie and beautiful. And I remember talking to Johnny Byrne about it. He said, like, it was so good. It was put together so well. He said, and then they added this line, she had two brains.
I know. That's like letting the air out of the balloon. It's like all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't work.
Wow, that's amazing that she can fit two brains in her.
Two brains, and the head doesn't look any different. Right. She must have spare room.
Right.
It's amazing how that little piece of dialogue can make the difference, right?
It can. And these are things that occurred to me whenever we were making Super Space Theater movies. What can I cut out to improve it? It was really important to me to cut out the whole sequence where Alan is begging to be on the survival ship, because I remember Nick pointing out that he thought it made Alan look like a coward. Now, I never thought that when I first watched the episode, but the more I thought about it after he made the comment, I said, I'm going to cut it out so that Alan comes across as somebody more daring, the way everyone interprets him at. And it's the same thing when you look at a lot of other episodes. It's like, gee, I wish I could cut that out.
Just one or two lines, and it makes it so much better.
Yeah.
But it is funny because I was reading something the other day. It was a quote from Woody Allen. He said, like, when I'm writing it, I think this, like, when I'm writing a movie, it's like the best thing I've ever written. Everything has to be exactly how I've written it. He said, but then I get to the editing room and I'll give up anything. I'll switch around scene orders. I'll cut things. I'll play with time to try to make it work because it didn't work. And, again, like talking about that, like the opportunity to re-edit and sharpen these things, like, and the structure, like, that you're able to do that. We're able to do that.
Yeah. And I'm sure the same thing happens to you when you're writing fiction.
Right.
You read it, 7 dozen times, and then you hand it into somebody. What do you think? And they go, what about this? And you're like, oh man, how did I get that?
Why did I write that?
I know. I mean, I've been asked to write a short story for a book, which I can't talk about right now, but I have never written fiction before. And it's always been a challenge for me. And luckily they supplied me with story ideas because they wanted to go a particular way. And I said, okay, this story works. And as I'm coming up with the story, they went, oh, and by the way, we want you to add these characters in. And I said, okay, that throws my whole logic off. How do I get their logic to work with my logic? And I've been going through this over and over again. And as I write a scene, I go, oh, wait a minute. That contradicts what I just wrote. Now I got to change this. And I could imagine this happening, when they were doing the show and, seeing how many times Chris Penfold had to rewrite George Bellac's script because Martin Landau would say one thing and Jerry Anderson would say another. And then they hand it in and ITC New York would go, no, we don't like that. Change this.
Right.
Especially with Breakaway, there was so many changes that were made. I mean, it was a 90-minute story originally.
Well, no, it never was intended as a 90-minute, but because Lee H. Katzman overshot a lot, they had enough material to make it a 90-minute story. All the scripts, right down to the one that's called Turning Point, which is the official first shooting script that Chris Penfold did. It has scenes numbered and timed out. And if you add up all the times, it runs to roughly less than an hour. Mm-hmm. So but there's so much material in there that is never in the final episode. Not even taking into consideration all the reshoots.
Right.
It just still was never intended to go there, but I'm sure they looked at all these rushes and said, we could probably build a 90-minute episode out of this. I mean, certainly for commercial television, because you're only running maybe 70 minutes total. So it was definitely there, and it was brilliant how George Bellac he crossed all the I's and dotted the T, crossed the T's and dotted the I's. He knew that certain things had to be explained, or left in such a way that, okay, something odd's going on. So that explains why this probably really wouldn't happen in real life. And Chris Penfold dove in. He understood exactly what George Bellac was trying to do. It's just that I think Jerry Anderson, completely different ideas. So he and Bellac, eventually had to part ways. But Chris, even though he was originally the story editor and then got pushed out because they wanted this American, George Bellac, as a story editor. and Chris was his assistant, Chris still came in and did everything to make George Ballack still look good. He left George Ballack's name solely on the script, even though he did some major rewrites. But he absolutely understood where Chris was going to go, and these were things that he wanted the show to do. He wanted the metaphysical aspect.
Right.
And that's what makes it so special, I think.
Right. And between him and Johnny Byrne, they really formed the cornerstone of what the show became in the first series anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing to think about. And today, when we get like only 10 episodes a year, to think that we do have 48, that's like today that would be running like 5 years.
Oh yeah, but but the thing is, the fact that the show was being shot without a network commitment, because I think originally they were trying to get the show on the air in September '74,
right?
And because they couldn't get the networks to commit, they just kept shooting. But it also allowed them to go back and shoot additional pickup material months later. I mean, I think I remember Alan's cockpit stuff when he's watching the moon go out. That was shot months and months later.
Interesting.
Because originally he was supposed to play the character who breaks the window in Area 2 and then gets sucked out.
Oh, Collins.
Collins. What he was supposed to play originally.
Right.
Wow.
And then Nick also tells the story about Alphonse Cantani, that he was, as far as the Italian, and they were trying to have him do an Italian accent, and he was talking.
Well, because the character of Alan Carter was Alphonse Cantani, just like you look at the original Michael Butterworth novels, and you've got Mark McClintock and all these other characters, because they were trying different ideas for a chief pilot when they originally weren't expecting to have him back.
Yeah. It's also crazy.
I think John Hugg was also, in line to replace him before they were told they have to bring him back, because Nick smartly was doing a publicity tour between the seasons, and when they realized how much fan mail he was getting, they could not bring him back.
That would have been that's a whole nother story though. But John, I do want to reflect upon, when did you first start watching Space 1999? And I know, we're only a couple years age and difference, but when you're going back 50 years, it does make a big difference. But
I think it was 50 years ago tonight. If tonight was the first WPIX,
did you watch it on originally when it was aired?
Yeah. So I don't know why or how. I was born in December '69, so I guess I would have been 6. Is that right? I sometimes say 5, but I think it's actually
great.
6.
I'm the oldest of the 3. Terrific. You know how this makes me feel every time we do. It's the anniversary of this, and it's the anniversary of that. And I'm going, I was there when it was first on.
Well, and I heard Roy talking about Space Report, and that was like not to be sacrilegious, but getting to read that in Starlog was like the Bible to young Space 1999 fans. It was finding out what was going on there. It was the word. It was what we wanted to know, and so my parents somehow knew to like sit me down in front of this thing, right? Without it ever having aired. I think Lost in Space was on reruns, and Star Trek was on reruns, and I did like both of them.
Well, I think Channel 11 ran Star Trek before Space 1999.
They
That's right.
did. In fact,
because it was on every day.
It was on like 6 o'clock at night on Channel 11. It was on Monday through Friday. But
and
even with
Saturday
their
and Sunday.
they would edit it, and it just like they did Space 1999.
Yeah.
And again, you see this extra footage later on, and it's
you probably were too young to remember the infamous broadcast of the Corbomite maneuver on Channel 11.
Oh my gosh, I don't remember that.
They ran again 35 mil prints, and they screwed up a reel. And all of a sudden, we're somewhere else in the episode.
Oh, no.
wow.
And I remember that because I was like, I'm sitting there for the TV show going, I don't remember it going like this.
I remember I was very upset when I was into Star Trek in the early 80s, and two Saturdays in a row they aired That Which Survives. It's like this was the a week
Yeah.
at this point.
There
And
were
they aired
confusions
that
like
one
that
2
too.
weeks in a row.
Yeah.
It's why?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, I was so happy. You know, Space 1999 for me, encountering it at that point. I mean, obviously, I love Star Trek and all that, but I felt like, you know, Star Trek was something that, in some sense, predated me. Same thing with Lost in Space, and at the time, Space 1999, at least, you know, to my young mind, felt so possible. It looked so real. It
Yeah.
felt so real.
I mean, it's just like the theme of Jeffrey Morris's documentary, you know, The Eagle Obsession. It was a possible future. Star Trek, the idea that we're cruising at warp speed somewhere out in the galaxy with aliens, seemed very far off.
Right. This was me. You know, this was going to be me at 35.
Right.
I could.
Exactly.
On that.
Exactly. You know,
Moon
you can
base.
picture that the moon base is going to be there in 20 years.
Right. It was somehow, you know, and that's why it always floored me when people say, like, this is very unbelievable. I'm like, but it's really not, because, you know, they wear spacesuits all the time, and they worry about fuel, they worry about gravity, you know, all of these things.
Food, all the things that you expect an isolated colony to worry about.
And it seemed really natural, and it seemed real. I mean, when you saw them,
I could forgive the whole logic that the moon is bouncing around space like an intergalactic ping pong ball, and traveling at incredible speeds, simply because the format allowed them to tell stories that Star Trek couldn't.
Right. Right. You know, that's the, you know, I've read many comments over the years from Star Trek writers that said, like, the notes I always got was, don't get into the bigness of it all. We don't do that on Star Trek. But what I loved about Space 1999 is, like, let's get into the bigness of it all.
Yeah.
Because
and you got to remember one of the most unique themes about the series. The universe is a big, dark, scary place, and we're the invaders.
Yeah.
We don't intend to invade, but we're there invading everybody else's, you know, lands.
And what was great too is things could be left, and I know we've talked about this before, but I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Things could be left unexplainable. It's like, we don't know the reason why. Force of Life, you know, the ending, the epilogue with that. Right. I mean, you know, Eve is looking for the answer, and there is no answer. That's the answer.
There's a lot of non-answers, but that's
exactly. That's I mean, 1999 was willing to take that jump and allow the audience to have to think and say, you know what just happened? We don't know, but that's okay.
Again, it's so real, because in life we don't always have the answers. We don't have explanations.
We make up the answers. I mean, it's you know,
yes,
you know, to not malign anybody's religious beliefs. A lot of, you know, part of religion is to help us understand what we don't understand, to try and put something in a framework that we could accept, that bad things happen, mysterious things happen for a reason, something that we could wrap our head around, so we could go on and continue to live our lives. And it gives you a comfort by trying to work out some way that something happens that's beyond your control.
Right.
And it's not saying, and you know, like Victor says, I don't know anything about God, but I think there's some force, some intelligence that's helping us. Doesn't necessarily mean he's saying it's God is out there, but there's something greater than us that wants us to succeed, wants us to go on.
And I so love the way that Barry Morse delivered that, because when Martin Landau asks him the question, he plays it that he almost gets nervous. It's like he's like, I don't know. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, he goes, I'm a scientist, but it was such a realistic response. I mean, again, that's, you know, kudos to Barry Morse for, you know, his abilities, but it's just that it was so natural the way that he responded to that, and you really could feel his, you know, his response.
It says really what the whole underlying tone of the series is.
Yeah.
That you sometimes have to face the unknown, you know, with some kind of courage that, you know, if you do the right thing, things are going to work out.
Right.
You know, there is a way to survive the worst thing. And You know, you had this colony of international people. There was always somebody there that you could relate to. And you could say, yeah, that's a place where, you know, I think I could be. You know, I mean, try to imagine sometimes living in the locations of a lot of these shows. And can you imagine yourself on this, you know, rogue moon bouncing around the galaxy with all these people? And this is a place where at least you have some hope that you're going to go on.
And, you know, again, it's so funny you say that, because, you know, even there's definitely heroism on the series. In the first episode, that Helena says, we're not looking for heroes, or whatever it is.
Right.
But the protagonists of the show, even though they are heroic, they're not heroic in sort of wild ways. They're heroic in very recognizable ways that people are heroic in desperate situations. So that's one other aspect of the realism. But also going back to like force of life, like, you know, we're getting like, you know, people wake up to alarm clocks. There are books. People take showers. You know, it's like
showers. People are married in relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
It is very relatable and very real in that way.
Yeah.
That makes you able to sort of immerse yourself in this reality. And then, of course, you know, quite simply, the cinematography is, you know, absolutely stunning.
First season was all movie of the week.
Absolutely.
There was really nothing on TV that looked that slick. From the camera,
David Tomlin's
the crazy camera angles. I mean, I love that the first time in Force of Life, where the camera just goes, oh,
yeah.
I mean,
and all the wonderful the music. I mean, I didn't know at the time that it wasn't Barry Gray. You know, I wasn't familiar with most of that tracking music, so I thought that was all Barry Gray suddenly being really creative. But it was actually all the music editor. You know,
but it just comes together in such a way. So many episodes, especially of the first season of this montage. It's like this perfect blend of light, angle, you know, mise en scène, montage, whatever you want to say, music, performance, that, you know, it's making you feel something.
It was real because they had ceilings.
Yeah.
You didn't see walls that went up and kept going. You saw the roof above them, and it's like we're really inside a room on a moon.
I want to jump in on a comment you just made
about
the music too, because seeing this episode Breakaway for the very first time and just watching it progress. I mean, and actually, let me share a few slides, because I'll bring this up on the screen just to. I mean, I always love that opening shot.
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself was so cool.
The only thing that always troubled me about that shot, when the moon gets past the sun, the moon's still lit. It should have dipped. You know, these are things that it only bothers you as you watched it a million times, which I have.
You have to have dramatic license. Dramatic license is okay.
Yeah,
you gotta be able to see
it wasn't really terrible, but you know, it just could have been better.
But seeing this vast area, I mean, it was like so incredible. And then
that was a tremendous model. That was that was the only model that was designed by I'm forgetting his name suddenly, who worked with them on Joe 90 and Captain Scarlet. He was the designer. I'm blanking suddenly because Anthony wrote a book. Do I have it around here somewhere? Ken something. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't know, to be fair.
But he came in and he designed this beautiful waste area.
It was just so incredible. I mean, and that's what we're, you know, introduced to, and it was just so amazing. And then of course we see, you know, Professor Bergman and Dr. Russell, and then with the Eagle, where, you know, the nuclear waste is being, you know, deposited.
That's the first Eagle we see is actually the 22-inch model.
How cool is that?
That gives you a rough idea how big that whole set was.
And again, just that this is where we open on the show. Right. I don't want to say it's unromantic, but it's not like we're exploring, we're on an adventure. It's like this is a workaday ship doing its workaday job, taking this thing to this to this dump or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And some of the first special effects we see are like a floodlight. So again, it's brilliant miniature work, but it's this idea of a workaday,
which cuts in nicely with the live action set.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I just love how sort of unromantic. Maybe unromantic isn't the right word, but it's like unidealized. It's like you can believe this future is real, and you don't have to accept, that we're a wholly different kind of people or something, or that.
No, it's just like a couple of years in the future, really.
Right.
Yeah, and it's operational.
That's a good word. That's
exactly. Yes, very operational.
Yep.
And of course, here's the first time you see a set with the full ceiling. It's like,
look at that.
We're in a spaceship. Look at the detail, the angle. I mean, all right, it's 2001. We all know where their influence came from, but we can forgive them that.
We can.
And then we get to the credits, and and Barry Gray's music is just so grand. It's
because that was the thing that of most Anderson shows where the credits were thrilling every week.
Yeah, look at that. Look at those shots. Yeah. Look at those angles and that imagery.
The planets were much more alive in the first season because they had the luxury of time to create them. They would create paint mixes and photograph them, do large scale photographs, and then project them on a semisphere. So by moving the projector, they can make it look like it's orbiting.
And my memory, and this may be wrong, but I'm just going to speak from my memory. But when I looked at the planets on Space 1999, oftentimes they would have a glow, like they had the atmosphere as the Eagles were going. And then, like the next time I saw that was in Star Wars. The planets had an atmosphere.
Oh yeah,
in Star. Right. It's like,
they got really good with that in the second season. There was a couple of episodes where you saw the atmosphere curve and the Eagle going into it, and it was like really well done.
Yeah. Yes,
I love this shot, especially like from the Testament of Arcadia, where they're coming upon Arcadia. The Eagles just like flying to it. And to your point, John, you have like that glow that's around Arcadia, and then when it comes in, the next shot is you have the sun in the background, and
the eagle comes from behind the sun.
It's such a cool shot
because it wasn't supposed to cut that way.
That's the most recent episode that I've watched was Testament of Arcadia, and I loved it. Again,
on the Blu-rays, it's actually been fixed.
Okay,
you don't actually see the eagle come from behind anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember that. Like that struck a memory.
They fixed that, and they also color corrected the sky because they used the in-camera effect of them walking out of the eagle from another time, another place, and they changed the sky color in it so it matches that episode now.
That shot is still phenomenal to me.
Because of how it was done. I mean, it was totally in camera. They took a picture of the 44-inch model, and then they did a photographic cutout of the nose cone and the front cage section with the landing leg and put it on glass. And then they had a huge photographic blow up of the back leg, and then they sandwiched it around the staircase so you could just see them come out from between them.
It's still stunning. I pause it all the time
because like I say, it was done in camera, so there's not a single drop of degradation in the film. Yeah. Because everything's first generation. That's why the effects still hold up so well.
They do. They're really stunning, and that episode is still stunning to me. Just the whole idea of it, how it puts that whole first year together, and how we end with the book closing and the pen on it. That's some great
moment.
Yeah, when it's run in the correct order.
There's that. Right.
Well, that's why I laughed when I the Last Enemy being the last episode. I've seen in so many guides it'll say that was considered episode 24, and it's like, what?
Well, it depends on
Lou is joining us.
Hi, Lou.
Lou plays.
Because what happened was ITC would put together a suggested running order, and they put the strongest episodes on first. I think WPX ran
Dragon's Domain was second.
Yeah, it was second. Yeah,
which I think is why Nick Tate seemed to think that it was an earlier shot episode.
Yeah.
because you probably watched them,
Right.
and maybe when they did that, because I
He's
had
very insistent that it was one of the earlier episodes.
and I said no, because here's
No.
the shooting schedule. That's why I sent him a copy of the book that Rob and I did, because I said, here's your shooting schedule,
Well,
and it's later in the series.
I will say this: they should have run them in order, but I'm so glad Dragon's Domain was second, because
Absolutely.
It sells the show. It sells the show.
It held. You're talking about like making it appointment television each week.
Yeah.
Breakaway was stunning, but I didn't know exactly what to make of it at age 6. There was a lot of technical talk, but
Yeah.
You get to Dragon's Domain in week 2, and you're like, holy cow!
Well, also because Breakaway ends on a sort of cliffhanger, thinking next week you're going to Meta,
Right.
Yeah.
and then we have the official episode 2, Matter of Life and Death, and they go to Terra Nova.
Right.
We had the luxury of E.C. Tubb when he did the novelization, said we changed the name.
Right.
Okay.
I remember talking to Johnny Byrne about that. I said, "Is it Meta?" And he said, "No, it's not. It's Terra
No, Johnny never wrote it as
That's
episode 2, but it got shot as episode 2 because the script was ready.
Yeah.
They
would
had
have been
nothing
perfect
else
if
to
it had
put
been,
in.
but I want to get caught up on a couple of the comments out there too, just to share some of them. I'm going to put them on the screen here. Randy's commenting saying, I vaguely recall creating a Space 1999 Hoth crossover video in wintry Wisconsin's. Boy, do I wish I still had that.
Ultima Thule.
Yes.
Jeff, hey Jeff. Jeff Rubel's joining us from out in Utah. He said, by today's standards, it's amazing that the episodes were 52 minutes. No wonder they butchered them.
Well, yeah, because there were so many different lengths that different stations, different countries would use.
Yeah. Missy said, I remember from way back Online Alpha group talking about cutscenes back when it was on Sci-Fi Channel and the Columbia House VHS were available. I was hearing about scenes I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
And then she also said Alphans had to accept that mankind really didn't know that much about deep space as they thought that they did.
Exactly. Exactly.
Martin is commenting saying, not everything can be explained, but sometimes you have to expect what just happened and learn from it.
Good point.
That's usually what happens when you get into the car and it doesn't start. You have to realize I should have looked at the check engine light a month ago.
Should have refueled that Eagle.
Yes.
Bill is saying the theme of Space 1999 may be the thought that you can't go home again, and yet we must go on anyway. It's sobering and profound.
It's home is where you make it.
Yeah.
Really. Every time they tried to get off Alpha and they had to go back, this is it. This is your home.
He also commented, I'm curious what you guys think of the coldness and sterility of the moon base. It seems such an uncomfortable place to live, or is it just me?
No, I didn't think it was. I mean, yeah, it had to be sterile for logistical reasons, but
Right.
I wouldn't say it was uncomfortable. I mean,
Well,
it didn't look like the Sheraton Hotel, like the Enterprise D, but it's still, I mean, you had comfy beds.
The books, you had bookshelves and people's pictures,
Right.
Photos, right on there.
Yeah, I mean, we never really saw the food, so I can't comment about that. That was
Right.
that I thought was one thing that they missed out on, because George Ballack in his original writer's guide had a cafeteria, like an automat, where people would meet and greet and eat. And I think David Weir picked up on that in his original draft of Black Sun, where he has a whole scene between Helena and Bergman in the automat. And I said, a gathering place like that would have been a really useful set.
It really would have been. Yeah.
And they kind of missed out on, having more personal stories if they had done a more general gathering place.
But we did see things like puzzles and chess. And
that there were things that people could do, and they would exercise and do kendo, which was weird when I was a kid. When I saw it, I was like, "What are you doing?"
Get a suntan. They had to.
And Philip just commented, the aesthetics of Space 99 are grounded and functional, but
exactly.
To your point, Martin just commented the solarium about the suntan.
Yes.
Ken just commented, he said, I wanted to live on Alpha so bad.
Me too, Ken. Oh my gosh.
Jeff Rubel said it couldn't have been that uncomfortable with all that fabulous Italian furniture.
There you go.
Those great lamps.
Yes, the lamps, the chairs. Well, the plastic chairs in Main Mission, I don't know about.
Yeah.
Koenig's big, comfy round chair.
Yeah.
That was a cool chair.
Yep.
So I'm gonna try to share something, and this is about where we would be right now in the episode, and I'm hoping we make it through the filters here. But I'm gonna try to share it on the screen. I'm not gonna do audio, so hopefully that helps with it. But I'm going to share, and this is kind of where we would have been at 50 years ago at this time.
Yeah.
Oh, with Simmons.
Yeah. Nobody's been able to explain to me exactly what the thought was where they killed Simmons off in the book, because he's not killed off in any of the scripts. So exactly, why they did that in the book, I don't know,
Right.
unless Tubb just hated the character.
But again, I just have to love this because it seems so real. As a kid,
That's my favorite shot.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
You see the dust coming up and everything. Look at
that. Yeah.
That's
That's
here we go.
stunning. And just the very idea that they couldn't stop this lets you know you weren't in this purely heroic, romantic fantasy world.
Yeah.
They weren't going to be able to stop this. They did their best, and they still couldn't stop this catastrophe.
Yeah.
Which really does fit in very well with the mid 1970s disaster film milieu, right?
Yeah.
Right. But it's that idea, the money shot. Yes,
it is. Very Ken.
The one thing that I always felt that they missed out on, especially now that I know it was in Belak's script, was you'll see the moon now moving, and it looks absolutely normal. And Belak described it as a nightmarish hunk of rock, because this whole section of the moon was suddenly going to be vaporized and turned into plasma.
Right.
And they actually did a special effects shot of the moon moving with this big glowing area, and they never used it.
That would have helped, I think, for some people.
It would have helped to sell it.
Really
I think Johnny Byrne wrote the episode Seance Spectre.
I don't think
I don't remember, but I remember reading.
No, he didn't write it.
No, somebody, but whoever wrote. I remember reading the script before the episode came out, because we got all the scripts to do a synopsis for the Alpha Tech Notebook, and a lot of the episodes hadn't aired, and they described the dark side of the moon as a nightmarish melted mess when they went to the waste areas. And of course, it just looked perfectly normal in the episode. And I don't know. I think that all came down to, originally they were supposed. That's an hour word from our sponsor, Bob. Anyway, originally Jerry's idea was Earth was going to be blown up to send the moon out, and Abe Mandel said, "No, that's too terrible. TV stations won't like that; they'll be horrified." So he just threw out, "I'll blow up the moon instead," and he kind of did it as a joke, and Abe latched onto it, and he was stuck with having to do this, and everybody knew it was a really preposterous idea, but they had no choice because they wanted to get the show made, and this is where is the only way they can get the moon out into space. But I think they probably were shot down when they tried to come up with concepts to really turn into like a nightmarish hunk of rock.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember Johnny Byrne said when he saw the show's concept, he had a black cloud lowered over his face.
Yeah.
But he also said, which I think is really true, that thing which gave people such conniptions was one of the things that made room for the stories that were so special.
Exactly.
And he always talked about with me, he said, because I was working on my first web series then, and he consulted with me. That was The House Between. And he said, when you always turn your weakness into a strength. You figure out what your weakness is, and you make that the thing, and that becomes the strength. Yeah. And I think that Space 1999 does that. As hard as that concept is, the moon gets blasted out of orbit and goes to other planets, but like that opened the door to things like alternate universes, space warps, all of that stuff.
Just think of an episode and try and put it in the terms that they're not on the moon, but they're on an actual spaceship.
Right.
And in some cases, it doesn't work because
No.
then you have to the spaceship has to be crippled or something so that they're
Right.
stuck going someplace. You know,
Well, and it changes the whole tenor. If it's a spaceship, it's going somewhere, and they know it's going somewhere, and they can control where it's going.
exactly.
If the travelers are reluctant and not prepared, what are they doing on a spaceship? You know,
Right.
there's that issue there. So
The episodes where we got 3 days and the moon is going to be out of orbit, so we've got to
Right.
get down to the planet, do what we need to do, and get back,
right,
or else we're stuck. You wouldn't have that. I mean, well, the closest that we've come to this concept is Stargate Universe, which was
right.
kind
And
of
I
like
like
Space 1999.
Yes.
They were stuck on a spaceship they couldn't control,
Yes.
and they had finite amount of time whenever they visited a planet.
I liked that show, and now you pointed out
It
David
was.
why.
It was because it really was kind of. I mean, I thought about it. I said, "Oh, you could take this concept, and that could have been series 3."
Yeah.
They found this ancient spaceship, but they're still in the same boat. They're not controlling where they're going.
It would have
Oh
been
my
really
gosh,
interesting if there had been a series 3.
Yeah.
I mean, what direction? Now, I had heard that Tony Anholt said that if there had been a series 3, he would not have come back. I don't know if that's hearsay or if that's true or not. There was talk about potentially Catherine Schell doing a spin-off series.
Yeah.
That
There
was
was always talk, but you know,
right.
And Martin Landau, even though he probably Landau's probably wouldn't be doing series 3, he still had approval
Right.
for doing it. So everything had to be passed through him. That's why
With the ownership, yeah.
Why we had the whole licensing
The license.
crisis in the 90s, because when the Sybil Danning adventure videos came out, they freaked out and stopped them from giving clearance to photos.
Yeah.
You guys, I am so sorry. I love being with you. I've got to run. I'm talking to my son at college.
Oh, well, you got priorities.
Thank you, John, for jumping
Thanks,
on.
John. It was good to see you
Thank you
again.
for allowing me to join you all tonight.
Take care.
Absolutely.
It was a great pleasure.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now. See, life always gets in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, in regards to that, though, the show would have been ending right about now, and we would have just finished seeing Breakaway. So that was good timing. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Some last minute comments coming through. Ken said, "I always thought it was cool that The Last Sunset couldn't have been done on any other series." Talking about if it was a
exactly.
Perfect. Phil said, "I always thought it was supposed to be closer to Moonbase 3 than not."
Yeah, there was yeah. Well, because on Moonbase 3, again, it's not going anyplace. It's at a fixed point, so all the action had to come to them.
Yeah, exactly. John, thank you for joining. He said, oops, if I can get the comment up here. He said, "Finally, Roy, you're back on a Sunday night."
Hey, they missed you.
Thanks. Much appreciated, John. Let's see. And Randy's saying Martin Landau said in an interview that he was pleased with the lack of control.
Of destiny. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So no,
I mean, all that wonderful metaphysical stuff was lost with the second series, which is why there's such a divide between people liking one series over the other.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, we love Catherine Schell, we love Tony Anholt, but story-wise, the second series doesn't, really do it for me the way the first series did. And it actually, as I had, as people have heard, on this new box set, they have an additional TV movie that Chris Dale put together from Dorzak and Devil's Planet.
Yeah.
And he did the crazy, unconventional thing, and he cut the episodes together instead of just dovetailing one to the other like I did. And it actually works for the most part, intercutting back and forth between Devil's Planet and Dorzak, because, well, Koenig's not in one episode, but he's in the other. So,
right.
It makes sense, but it's still sort of, I mean, the stories don't move the same way that the first series did. They seem to be more pulp science fiction than some kind of really deep thinking dramatic stories.
No, and
it's not to put it down, because there are episodes in the second series that I still really enjoy, but not the same way.
In fact, Missy just commented and said some of us really love both years. Does that make us
No,
strange?
no,
No, not at all. In fact,
it's
there are a
no
lot of years
different than comparing Space 99 to Buck Rogers or
Yeah.
Star Trek or any other show. You could equally enjoy both shows for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And the first and second series really are like different shows. It's, people talk about, oh, I'd love to see them reboot 1999 and go, well, they kind of did. The second season really was a reboot.
It's really funny though, for me, when I was watching it, I didn't really go in that direction, that it was like obviously it was, they made the changes and everything, but I never thought of it as like an alternate universe. Like here, for example, when I watch the new, and not to go down the Star Trek path because we're talking about Space 1999, but with the new Star Trek series that are out, for me, I can watch those shows, but I don't, in my own mind, I don't consider them linked to what we grew up with Star Trek, Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and also Enterprise. To me, those episodes are self-contained.
Yeah.
But for me, I always thought Space 1999, yeah, there's year one and there's year two, but I always felt year two was a part of year one. It's just that, different things occurred that we weren't privy to see, but it wasn't like that this was a different reality or a different.
No. I went into watching the second series because I had been pre-sold on all the new ideas by Bob Mandel.
Yeah.
And said, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to make this much better. They were all, he was all talking about, it's going to be, there's going to be more humor and more personal interaction. And, Bob Wood and I came to find out by digging through Martin Landau's paperwork that there was a lot more that they were planning to do the show that they never pulled off. And one of the things was that they had this whole idea of how much bigger Helena's role was supposed to be. And they never managed to make her into the character they wanted to write for the second season.
Right.
They actually, I think, underwrote her for the second season.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think I vaguely remember you mentioned you.
Yeah. She went from being just head doctor to now she was in charge of the entire environmental system.
Right.
And this was a major, boost to her character. And they just simply wrote her as, again, the female background lead.
Yeah.
Maya got to do more heroic stuff than her, which was unfortunate because it just seemed like Johnny Byrne had some great ideas where he wanted to take the character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame that things didn't proceed.
But that's TV because
right.
The one thing that I stressed about in the book was TV's this giant animal. Once you start production, it's an eating machine.
Right.
And you have to have a script on the stage ready to shoot because the actors and the production team are standing around waiting, and you have to keep the thing moving forward or else it dies. And that's why you end up with shows sometimes with episodes that don't quite work because they're up against the wall. They have to have a script down there and they give the best they can and hope that somehow they're going to pull it out of their hat. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I mean, the most famous one is everybody on Star Trek: The Next Generation went into yesterday's Enterprise thinking this was going to be a terrible episode. It's not going to work. It turned out to be one of the most popular episodes, and that came out of nowhere because everything clicked.
Yeah. And that's what makes the difference. And that's the magic of television or the magic of movie making. Sometimes things just happen, and it's like lightning in a bottle, so to speak.
Right. Well, that's why when you do 24, 26 episodes a season, you're going to have, great episodes. You're going to have a couple of stinkers. Because how many times...
Talking about that, look at and again, going back to Star Trek real quickly, but look at City on the Edge of Forever. Everything that happened with Harlan Ellison and everything.
And it still worked in its own way.
Exactly. He really wanted
it's a great story if you've read the original script.
Yeah, totally different.
But it somehow it still managed to rise above all the editing changes.
Yeah.
As a writer, I could understand, Harlan was not someone who suffered fools lightly, and he believed that he was right, and he would defend himself.
Right.
And whether you believed he was right or not, he stood his ground. He didn't wishy-washy. From the few experiences I had with him. I mean, I like to say I got yelled at on the phone by Harlan Ellison.
I never got the opportunity to meet him.
Yeah.
Captain Phil actually had said that he had an opportunity to meet him, I think, a couple of times at convention events.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never had that opportunity.
Yeah. But you see the difference now with 10 episodes.
Right.
If a bad episode comes up, it's because they tried to shoot for something and it just didn't work. But they you can't spend a year shooting and then on post-production. I mean, they already shot season 4 of Strange New Worlds, and I don't think we're going to see it till like next spring.
Yeah.
So in all that time, if they have 10 episodes and there's a bad episode in there, that episode really was something that they thought was better, and they couldn't save it in post-production, because with 10 episodes you shouldn't have a stinker.
No, you should not. Randy said humanity struggled to adapt, ensure, and find hope in an isolation.
Yeah.
Missy said, I think if year 2 would have had 5 to 6 more months for production time, it could have been that much more better. Well, yeah, that was more under the gun than the first series, because the first series went 15 months and the second series went from January to December. So really it was
and
11 months.
Yeah, and they just had to crank episodes out. That's why they did the double ups, because they kept running behind. And that wasn't actually the first series to do double ups, because I've read about shows in the 60s.
Well, Lost in Space did
double ups. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea did double ups.
Absolutely.
Because they would just run behind. Some episodes would overrun the 6-day shooting schedule, and they'd have to make up the time.
Yeah.
Because got to remember, back then there was no big breaks like network shows have now, where they run 6 episodes from October to November, and then you don't see new episodes till February. Mm-hmm. They ran episodes on holidays every day. There was 26 weeks straight of episodes. Sometimes they had so many new episodes that you wouldn't see all the episodes repeated.
Yeah, right. They would cut some of them out. Bill said Jonathan Harris used to say that television is a monster, that it eats material. Yep. You have to come up with a new script every week.
Absolutely.
Impossible to have everyone be perfect.
Absolutely.
And John is commenting. He said, I worked at CFTO TV in Agincourt, Ontario in the mid-'80s. For the years I worked there, I found wonderful storyboards, set pieces, and costumes from The Star Lost and The Hitchhiker.
Yeah, I remember both those shows. Yeah.
Yeah,
Star Lost was a show that started off big and ended up running out of money.
Yeah, I actually covered Star Lost on the show. It was one of the first stories that I covered, and that was like about 5.5 years ago. And I think, if I remember correctly, there were only maybe 16 or 17 episodes for Star Lost.
Yeah,
it was short-lived. And
because I think it got canceled because it just like stations weren't buying the show, and it just all the trouble they ran into just getting the show on the air.
Yeah. Martin said ship in a bottle episodes when funds run out. No.
But ship in the bottle episodes aren't bad, because sometimes some of the best episodes are ship in the bottle episodes.
Absolutely. And Dennis said Star Lost was awesome. So.
I mean, Troubled Spirit technically was a ship in the bottle episode, because it was all on existing sets. Well, I say existing, but they did build
redressed.
But they did build the nuclear generating area. But then they amortized that by using that in another time, Alpha Child.
Yeah.
So usually, if they were building a big new set, they tried to get the following script to use it.
Right, because in Force of Life, the nuclear generator area was showcased extensively, and then Alpha Child, they had Koenig go through there to have a meeting and about.
Yeah, but you could still sort of factor out the cost of building the set between the 2 episodes, and it wasn't really it was a physically new construction, but it was all built from existing set modules. Nuclear. The nuclear cones and the background things. They use those art draft files cabinets in the background too. I mean, Keith Wilson was great at finding existing stuff that he could rent or use over again that would match the sets. That was the great thing about the modular set design. You know, he could create a brand new set without doing too much new construction. But that was the whole deal with this first season anyway, that every set was really build it, take it apart. Only Main Mission and the Eagle interior were the only real standing sets. Everything else was constantly reconfigured. That's why you never saw a medical center the same way more than twice.
Right. During the first season.
Second season was a fixed standing set, and you barely saw new sets other than a redress.
It was so contained too in year 2, the medical center.
It had to be.
Yeah,
it had to be because they couldn't spend hours relighting a set.
Yeah,
they couldn't spend hours, breaking down and building something new. They had to shoot the same exact sets.
I think the one time that they actually added to that set was for Dorzak, if I remember correctly. I remember reading somewhere there was an addition. There was an additional area where Maya was, when she was recovering. It was like a separate room, and we didn't see that room in other episodes. It was only in that specific episode.
It could have been just moved about some sets, because like in Mark of Arcanon, they created that sort of lower level where Alan was playing football
right
with the boy.
Yeah.
The main big alpha set that they added on was they had the observation room for seated destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Where you could look outside.
Yep.
And then they had the game room for Lambda Factor, which they used.
Yes.
They used, I think, in one other episode.
Yes. Sand Spectre. They used it in.
Yeah.
It was like the rec area.
The rec areas, which should have been a set that was standing all along, because it was very useful.
Yeah, Missy said that side piece set where Helena and the other doctor, that was Ed Spencer, and Dorzak had to step through the door to get to Yesta. Yeah,
it harkened back to the sets the sets that they had in the first season, where they had the isolation area, like in Force of Light.
Exactly. So, one thing I didn't mention too is we were talking about Breakaway. Now, Warren had put together it was a special version of Breakaway.
Yes.
That was showcased, and there was the work print, and then there was the alternate. It was like from the Martin Landau collection, which was really cool, and that had the additional scenes that were created with AI, and then also with the audio clips that were discovered, and that.
Actually, because
really
I helped them on. Them on that. How many versions? I think we had like 5 versions before we locked it down.
Yeah,
because he would go back and look for stuff that he could fill in the audio with, and I'm going, no, that's not right. That should be for a later episode. That's too soon, to have an eagle look like that or something like that.
Right, and that was based on the earlier script, though.
We were following the original George Ballack scripts. Yeah. Well, Turning Point was really the major shooting script, because you had Void Ahead was Ballack's first draft, and then there were 2 additional Void Ahead drafts where they kept refining the character of Helena and some of the other scenes, because there was a lot of wide. The moon base was tremendous in it. I mean, they had this. Like an elevator that led up to the Metaprobe, and it was docked above Moonbase Alpha at one point, and that was all changed, because the whole conversation that eventually went between Alan and Koenig about the Metaprobe in the workshop was originally inside the ship.
Gotcha.
So a lot of that was you have to cut down on sets. So Turning Point was really our guide, because there was so many scenes in Turning Point that were shot, like with the nuclear waste chief,
right?
What was played by Michael Sheard, without his mustache,
right?
So that's why we had to reinsert that stuff and know where they went. So we used that as the guide to putting those audio clips back in.
Yeah, that's a shame all that was cut, and I was really hoping that footage was going to turn up somewhere, but I guess never say never, right?
They just, yeah, but because there's always something that could be found in the archives. I mean, because Jazz Wiseman, who's the big ITC archivist in England, he worked with Network on their Persuaders box set, and he went into the ITC archives, which are now, of course, owned by ITV, and he found a whole B-reel of car footage.
Wow.
From the show, where they just went out on the roads and shot all the different cars for the show, running up and down, the French Riviera and whatever. So stuff is probably sitting in a can mislabeled someplace if it still exists. But the big problem is, of course, that ITC did, once an episode was locked down, the only thing they ever retained was the stuff they would need for the foreign versions, which was alternate title footage, what they call textless footage, so that you could put stuff in a foreign language, and the music and effects tracks, so they could redub them. But everything else, once the episode was locked, I think they just disposed of it, because how long are you going to store it? And the idea that you're going to do anything different with it back then was unheard of.
Yeah. I'm going to start to wind down, David, but one thing I want to pose to the folks out there that are out there is that if you have any memories or recollections you would like to share about watching Breakaway for the very first time, if you watched it on Channel 11 out of New York City or even elsewhere, just curious about the comments that to be shared, and if you can definitely post those out. And
do you remember trying to play with those rabbit ears to get it on a UHF station?
The rabbit ears, yeah.
Oh, God, I remember those days.
John said in Canada, Starlust was available on the local TV stations in the days when the majority of the Canadians did not have cable.
Yeah.
In the early 70s, I recall the show ran for 3 years, Saturdays at 7 p.m. While working at CFTO, I also found some remnants of the original taping of Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. Oh, that's interesting. Very cool. Thanks for sharing, John.
It's the old days before cable. I mean,
yeah,
I think I was one of the first people to get like home box office in the late 70s, I think it was.
Yep.
But that was just when they first started wiring it. But most people, I think, didn't have cable till the 80s.
Well, when we came out here, like I said, when my parents moved out to this area, because we got here in 76, we didn't get cable, I don't think, until 77, and
somewhere
using the rabbit ears. And then there were folks that had that, what did they call it? They called it Channel 100, aka HBO. And my parents actually got Prism, which was out of Philadelphia, sporting events for the Spectrum, and then also movies. And it was essentially, it was just like HBO. It was just like
if you want to really go back to the dark ages, when I was I had to have been about 7 or 8, we were living in Kensington, Connecticut, which was near Hartford. And we had at one point pay TV, which was a special channel. I think it was it may have been Channel 3. It may have been a UHF station. And you had a box on the TV, and you had to dial in a code that would unscramble the broadcast so you can watch a movie.
Wow.
And then once a month, the technician would come by and read your box and see what movies that you watched, and you get a bill.
Wow.
To watch the movies. I mean, that was like, the first time I saw King Kong versus Godzilla was on pay TV.
Yeah.
So
isn't that crazy? And now you can watch movies on your phone. I mean, how crazy is it that we've advanced the way we've advanced? It's insane.
It's just you can watch Space on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
You could watch only the episodes you like in whatever order you want to watch them.
At any time, you don't have to wait for it to go through the reruns and what have you.
Yeah.
Jeff wrote, I watched it on Channel 43 out of Cleveland on September 13th. Never been the same since.
Yeah, well, it's all our problem.
Missy said, I was ready with popcorn for premiere night. I think the entire family watched. I was in front of the TV, shouldn't sit that close. I know,
Yeah.
but totally worth it for the premiere. I remember my parents saying, "Don't get so close to the TV."
Here's something to ask, okay? How many of you out there back in the day when it premiered hung a microphone in front of the TV to record the audio and made sure the whole family had to be quiet for an hour?
I actually, to this day, I still have the premiere tape of on Channel 11. It was September 20, I think it was September 26th or 27th. I forget the date, but it was the Metamorph, and it was a Sunday night, and we were at my grandparents in Astoria, Queens, and I kept saying to my mom, "Are we leaving? We're leaving," and she was getting mad at me because we were my grandparents were visiting, but I wanted to get home to catch the Metamorph, and I still have the tape to this day. I don't have Breakaway on tape, but I
remember when we were visiting my grandparents in the Bronx. And I wanted to stay to watch Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea on Sunday night. My father said, "We have to go home to Connecticut." And as we're walking down the street outside the building, somebody's window's open and the theme is playing, and I was beside myself.
I love that theme. Randy said, "I just remember how much effort that went into watching it. First, look it up in the TV guide. Second, be ready to adjust the antenna."
Yep. And
Martin
sometimes you had to stand and hold it.
Yes, and don't move.
Yeah.
Martin said the TV signal was over the airwaves with an antenna on the roof. Missy says we were lucky. Weather was good. No messing with the antenna. Just needed to be in front of it on time.
Yep.
John said, "Promise, Roy, you will do a show at least once a week from now on. This is way better than pay TV." Thanks so much, John. Yeah, Ross and I are going to be back. We're going to be on Friday nights mostly. We'll do some Sundays too. But thanks.
We'll have to do some shows about some of my upcoming albums.
Absolutely, we'll definitely cover that.
One I could talk about right now because it is up for pre-sale. We've done the second series of The Outer Limits.
Ooh,
which was a chore for me because most of it is tracked with library music by Harry Lubin. It's all Harry Lubin anyway, but Harry Lubin worked on the Donna Reed show, I believe, and One Step Beyond. And all those years, he just amassed this massive library. So when ABC cut the budget for the second series, they brought him in, and he scored, I think he scored just Demon with a Glass Hand and the premiere episode. Which was it was the other Harlan Ellison. Soldier. I think those were the only two that he actually scored because most of the music seemed to come from these library tapes. And I just went through the second series and created suites from each of the episodes of music that actually appeared for the first time in those episodes. So that'll be on that's on the buysoundtracks.com website for pre-order.
Do me a favor, David, if you can post into the chat of this episode on Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, if you could put the link in and let people know where they can get that, and then
sure,
that would be great. And thinking of the Soldier, that was the Michael Ansara episode, right?
Yes, that was the very first one they aired. I don't think it was the first one they shot.
Gotcha.
But it definitely has an unusual score. I mean, certainly Demon with the Glass Hand is different from everything else on the show.
That was a wonderful episode. Yeah, if you can can you post the link into the chat right here?
I'm doing that right now. I'm just looking for it. I got to go to their website.
And I'll share some of the comments while you're doing that. Jeff Rubel said Panasonic tape recorder. Yep. Missy said, yes, we can watch it at 3 a.m. when we can't sleep. Yeah, because everybody's got the phones now. Randy says he still has his tapes. John is saying, yes, I audio taped a lot of shows, including Battlestar Galactica and Gilligan's Island. Missy said, I only have the Metamorph and Space Warp on cassette. Had to tape at my grandmother's house for the sign.
I put it in the studio chat.
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah.
You can definitely put it right in there.
Oh.
Randy says, I also remember watching with my friends praying that it was an episode that I had not seen. And Ken said, my brother and I would jockey for room in front of the speaker to record. And thanks for sharing, everyone. Thanks, Dennis. Great seeing you, Roy and David. Great episode, 50
Yeah,
years. Wow.
thank
No,
you.
we appreciate that. John is saying, David, I still have the audio 8-track of recording Cheap Trick Ed Buchan from the TV on a Saturday afternoon in 1978. At the time, I told my dad to turn off his electric razor. It messed up the signal.
I remember that. Oh, somebody would do something, or my sister, one of my sisters would have a fit somewhere upstairs about something.
And Martin said he taped Trek on audio.
Here we go. Here it comes.
Oh, awesome. Oh, I see it in the the chat too. You put it.
I had to join. That's why I was going, oh, I have to sign in. Oh,
here we go. Here's the link for the folks. Yeah, definitely check it out. And thanks for sharing that, David. Appreciate it.
There's a whole bunch of new stuff coming out. We aren't telling you what's coming out just yet, but there's something coming out really really fun.
We will stay tuned for that, and we can, like I said, I'll have you back on the show and we can talk about it. So that'll be cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the shout outs real quick, and then we'll come back just to wrap things up. Thanks for your patience, folks, and I'm just going to do this relatively quickly just to give a few shout outs. And let me just bring this to the screen. I'd like to do this. And just want to give our friends Mike and Mary Beth a shout out for Sci-Fi Distilled. They are on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and they are going to be discussing the 2005 film V for Vendetta, and that's the film with Natalie Portman, and Captain Phil will be guesting with them. So mark your calendar, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time this Wednesday, and again, that's Sci-Fi Distilled with Mike and Mary Beth. Also want to give a shout out to my friend Bill Scorado for Country Gate Playhouse, Country Gate Theater in Belvedere, New Jersey. Country Gate is going to be doing for 2 weekends Frankenstein.
Not Frankenstein.
Yeah, not Frankenstein. Yeah, exactly. They did do that too, though. But they're doing Frankenstein, and it's going to be going the weekends between October 25th and November 2nd. And for information, if you are in the Lehigh Valley area of New Jersey, you can go to www.countrygate.org. Also, Bill has a website, which is www.billscorado.com. So definitely check that out as well.
We should also...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. We should do another shout out, but in a moment.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely come back. Want to give a shout out to the Eagle Obsession, Jeffrey Morris's recently released movie. For information, you can go to www.eagledocumentary.com. I've had Jeffrey on the show many a times, along with David, and it has gone to the film festivals. It was just at the Space 1999 convention last week where it was showcased. So for, again, more information, definitely check out the website.
I hope everyone got from it what I did, because it was like, it just said, it was the hope of the future. We all look forward to a bright future, which science fiction really isn't now. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's very dark. But that was the intent.
And Captain Phil.
Yeah, and Captain Phil is on WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York. And the captain's schedule is on Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And you can also catch him on Friday nights, 9 to 11:30.
That's the big...
Yeah, and his guest this coming week, which will be on Thursday, or actually, I'm sorry, I believe on Friday, is going to be Steve Hogarth, and from the band Marillion. So definitely check it out. And again, you can check out Captain Phil online. And also I want to give a shout out to Studio One Thrift. Martha is actually closing up, folks. I've been promoting Martha online because she had Studio One Thrift. Whoops, and I just lost the signal. Whoops, not sure what happened there. Hang on. Coming back. Technical difficulties on this show? Never. That never happens.
Never.
Hang on. We're coming back here. We got it. Well, maybe not. Almost there. I love live theater or live shows. There we go. Anyway, as I was saying about Martha with Studio One Thrift, she is going to be closing the store. It is going to be closing at last day will be September 30th. She's having a mega sale event. If you are in the Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania area, is going to be next Saturday, September 27th. Actually, next Sunday. No, is it Saturday? No, Saturday. I was right the first time. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So definitely check it out, and that will be taking place. Also, I want to give a shout out to my son Ryan for his website, Run by Ryan, Empower Your Run. There are different levels you can sign up for. It is free to register for the website. It is www.runbyryan.com. And also want to give a shout out to my friend and my co-host, Mr. Ross Amico. Ross has 3 shows that he does that are on the weekends. The first being Picture Perfect. It's on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The next is on Saturdays from 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it is Sweetness and Light. And the last is The Lost Chord. It is on Saturday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The URL for that is kwax.uoregon.edu. He also has a Facebook page, which is listed under Classic Ross Amico, and he will tease about the shows that he will be doing. So definitely check it out if you have not already. And just to let everybody know, we were going to be, Ross and I had postponed discussing this movie from a few weeks ago because we had a power outage here. Go figure. And we were going to do it not this Friday, but October 3rd. However, Ross and I are going to be back this coming Friday, which is going to be September 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we will be doing the classic 1988 film, They Live, which starred Roddy Piper from his wrestling days, if you remember.
And you're all out of bubblegum.
And we're all, yes, exactly. We're all out of bubblegum. That was the bad one. Great movie.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to talking about it, and it'll be great to be back with Ross. We've been off the air probably the last 4 or 5 weeks just because there's been so much stuff going on.
We should also do a shout out to Charlene Scott's book.
Yes, and in fact, I want to have Charlene on just to talk about that book too. But yes, please put that up. Thank you for sharing that.
A bunch of us wax poetic about the show and what we love.
Yes, and here,
yeah.
In fact, when Charlene was kind enough to interview me for this book, I was actually in the hospital right before my surgery back in February.
And you can get that on Amazon along with Tipping Points, which is a collection of essays written by Chris Penfold that Robert Wood put out.
Yes.
So that's also worth getting.
Thanks for sharing all that.
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate what they've done here.
And and again, in regards to the Space 1999 convention, it was an amazing event. Just want to give a nod to Catherine Riley Caglietta. I always mispronounce her name. Caglietta. Also,
no one has problems with your name. No, never.
No. Christopher Paulson, also Warren, and then also Robert Wood, and then
Christopher Paulson, who keeps posting pictures of himself in his Moonbase jammies.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, and I actually have to start sharing stuff as well too. So it was an amazing event that the 5 of us did, and it was incredible just to have everybody there. And again, stay tuned. Everybody's going to be posting a lot of stuff. I got stuff I got to get on there as well. And
as soon as I get out from under all these assignments, I'll have a chance to see what I missed. But right now, I was just glad I had time to do this.
Yeah, no, I appreciated you jumping on, and it was great to have you on, David. It's always a pleasure. And I thought it would be a nice way to celebrate again. We've been covering the 50th anniversary, but this really hit home for me personally, just because of WPIX Channel 11. I mean, that was right.
It's where it all started.
Yeah, exactly.
There are so many ways you could celebrate the 50th anniversary. I think I was kidding everyone on one of Warren's podcasts, because do you celebrate the first day of shooting? Do you celebrate the first premiere? Barbara's birthday? this. So you could celebrate where the 50th anniversary is wherever you first were when you saw the show.
Yeah, there's so many
It's really what it
different
amounts
things.
to. Yeah.
And even on this show, I was November 30th of 2023. I did a special episode to celebrate the first day of production, the filming. So to your point, there's so many things, ways to capture it, but which have been done by everybody. Everybody's been wonderful with everything that everybody has done.
Oh, it's great to see the interest because I've talked about it before that when I left Starlog, we were in like this void of nobody even remembered the show for about 10 years. So
yeah, I mean, and that was, I even remember you writing and I remember I was in the car with my parents. We were going to visit my grandparents in New York, and we were driving. And I remember you saying that, and it had to be the late 70s. The show had been already pulled. Maybe it was even 1980. And you were saying in the Space Report that there was a chance that, we wouldn't even see Space 1999 until maybe like 1984.
Yep.
Because, everything with the rights and everything, there weren't enough episodes. There was only 48. And then when I think back that was over 40 years ago, it was probably more like 45 that I read that.
It's how TV changed over the years. When Space Time first came on, it was considered first run syndication. So stations ran it just once a week, and that was fine. But for the general syndication market, most shows had to have 100 episodes minimum because they'd run it Monday through Friday.
Like Star Trek, they had 70, technically like 79.
Right, but it still was enough, and it drew in the right audience.
Right.
But when you had a show that was only 48 episodes, you only had a very finite time before people would tire of it.
Yeah.
And, it was harder the shorter shows were harder to sell. That's why shows like, if it wasn't for public television, The Prisoner would have disappeared right off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Because it was only 17 episodes.
17 episodes, yeah.
So,
exactly.
But now, a 10-episode show, and it runs.
It's amazing how things change. But with that, David, again, it's been wonderful having you on, and I want to thank all of our viewers for everybody that commented and shared your stories and also watched us, and it really means a lot. And know that we're back and much appreciated. And as we like to say, any last words, David, before we?
No, just thank everybody again for coming here. Hello to everybody. See Ken and Lou and Dennis. It's always it was great seeing you guys at the convention. I wish as I said, I wasn't able to make the last two because this is just a bad time of year for me to get away. But thanks again for all your support, and we'll keep doing this as long as you guys want to listen.
Exactly. Everyone, as we always like to say, live long and prosper. And
I can't do it. I can't do it.
William Shatner used to say he couldn't do it either. I remember him saying that he had a problem with that. So,
well, there was always a running gag that I heard that Spock had his hands behind his back because Leonard Nimoy would keep his hands between his fingers just so his fingers would freeze up in that position. But he could do it. That was all just a strange rumor.
Anyway, we'll see everybody on Friday night then, hopefully, and that'll be next Friday, the 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for They Live.
Yep.
Take care, everyone.
You too. Bye now.